Let's also talk about Nigel Farage. He gave a press conference yesterday, and one of the questions he was asked about was about his personal security. I want to play a little clip of what he had to say, because reports are now, and again, it was very difficult. We talked about it on the show yesterday, but obviously we have to be very careful, because one thing we absolutely don't want to do is prejudice any future trial. We certainly don't want to be in contempt of court. So there are a lot of people, by the way, online who've been publishing things, going, "Oh, why isn't the mainstream media talking about this more openly?" Because we're not legally allowed to. I'm sorry for obeying the law. I know, silly, huh? Silly. But some of us are a bit more responsible. We want to make sure that if anything does happen in relation to any charges brought, that there will be a fair trial. Because most of us here in mainstream media, do we count as mainstream? I don't know if we do care about that stuff. But the Telegraph has reported today that police are investigating whether the man charged with murdering Ann Widdecombe was also responsible for firebombing Nigel Farage's home. Counter Terrorism Police are pursuing a new line of inquiry about the attack on the Reform UK leader's house, in which an incendiary device was pushed through his letterbox, the Telegraph is reporting. And officers are investigating whether Joshua Kerry, 28 years old, who's the man who's been arrested and charged over Miss Widdecombe's murder last month, could have been responsible for that attack. That is what is being reported in a national newspaper today. Here's what Nigel Farage had to say yesterday in his press conference.
Of course, most of the media organisations in this room called me a liar. Remember that vividly. Half of you in the room called me a liar. But the truth is, there was an investigation into this, and clearly, Counter Terrorism made some mistakes, which is why they've referred themselves to the Independent Office of Police Complaints. I understand this is a completely unprecedented move. And yes, this is directly linked to the murder of Ann Widdecombe. And I'm afraid I just can't tell you any more than that at this stage. It's a great tragedy that it took the death of Anne for the security services in Britain to finally take seriously the safety and security of Reform politicians and Reform.
It is quite extraordinary, this, Tom Slater. Obviously, there's aspects of this, we can't go into detail. I'm reporting what a national newspaper is reporting, other papers also reporting this. Nigel Farage having to skirt around it a little bit more. There is more that's not in the public domain that cannot yet be published, but the fact that, again, that we've got the Counter-Terrorism Police referring themselves to the Independent Office for Police Complaints, it does suggest that there may have been a major failing in the original investigation into an attack on Nigel Farage's home, and whatever comes out of that new line of inquiry does suggest that that some major mistakes have been made, and that, frankly, that looks like the authorities, as he's been complaining about, and many of us have been fearing, have not been taking the security of people like Nigel Farage seriously, despite the huge number of death threats he faces.
No, precisely. I mean, in that press conference, he also mentioned that his security, such that it was provided by the state, was pulled back just a few days before the assassination of Charlie.
2 days after, I think.
I believe it was before, because I think as if to say it wasn't that they'd responded to this in such a way, but shows that the lack of attention to this issue. And Farage, has, again, to put it gingerly, has been making this point for some time, that essentially there is a lack of concern, a willingness to do down the threat which is posed not just to Reform MPs but those on the right of centre of British politics. If you look back to the way in which his claims were discussed in some of the left of centre media, and he kind of name-checked.
Laughingly.
Exactly. The idea that he's under the cosh in this way is ridiculous. This is being ginned up for political purposes. I don't think those takes have aged particularly well in light of this news, and I think it also, at the very least, causes us to question, shall we say, the ease with which Ann Widdecombe's alleged murder was just dismissed as probably wasn't political. Burglary gone wrong.
No terrorism motive.
Not really linked in any way to a broader threat which might exist. So I think, again, the fact that the key point here, and certainly thing that we can talk about, is that the fact that Counter-Terrorism Police referring themselves to the IOPC, that's an admission that something has gone wrong in these.
Yeah, we know that for certain, don't we? I'd love to hear your thoughts on all the topics we are talking about.